What does it take to stay ahead in B2B SaaS? Winning in the margins. Welcome to the new Go-to-Market Playbook. I'm your host, James Kaikis, Chief Revenue and Experience Officer at Testbox. In our interview series, I sit down with go-to-market operators, leaders, and industry experts who are defining the next era of go-to-market by winning in the margins. These leaders are focused on incremental innovations and non-obvious advantages that drive big results. The goal of this interview series is for you to take action in your business, so sit back, grab a notepad, and enjoy the episode. Jesse, it's good to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you too.
I'm excited for this conversation because, one, we've known each other for quite some time. Mm-hmm. You've been very influential in my career and my pre-sales collective journey, but also you're doing some really great things at People.ai. And one of the funny things is when people talk about solutions engineering and solutions consulting and some of the things I talk about at Pre-Sales Collective, I am glad to say that I borrowed the term co-pilot from you.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, I've always been a big advocate of the pre-sales profession.
Yeah.
And like, SEs need to have ownership of the process. And that's why I use the term co-pilot. Like,
yeah.
The thing that bums me out is when you have SEs that are basically like paper pushers, like technical support answers.
Yeah.
So like, I've always sought to like up-level my teams and the profession as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that you've done that. And I really liked calling it co-pilot. And I think that it allowed for a change in methodology of like, I'm not an assistant to the salesperson, right? Like, I'm a partner in crime and sales. And I love that you've called it that, and it stuck with me. So thanks for that.
Yeah, of course. Happy to give it to you.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about you. Like, you've been in the solutions profession for quite some time. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your background, but really, your current role, your title, and let people get to know you.
Yeah. So I'll give you the quick overview of my career. So I spent 10 years at Salesforce. I was an SE over there, kind of worked my way up through the ladder. Later on in my career at Salesforce, I was running the demo engineering team, so responsible for all the go-to-market demos, which was honestly a really transformational thing for me because I was able to understand like the mechanics of running a large go-to-market SE team and like how you scale all this stuff. I was just at Dreamforce. And one of the things my team built was the scheduler for all the people at Dreamforce.
Oh, wow.
So like all the SEs and like all the booths, it's like 300 demo stations, 3 shifts a day. Yeah. It's like 1,500, 2,000 shifts throughout the entire time that you have the staff. So like, it's all these like little things you don't think about that like with larger companies, there's a lot of scale that you have to get to.
Yeah.
And that led itself to demos too, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
That's awesome. And so after Salesforce, you made a couple of stops at a couple of great companies. Where else did you go?
Yeah, so I ran the North America SE team at Mixpanel. I ran the SE team at TalkDesk. And most recently, I've been at People.ai for the last 6 years.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm having quite a run over there. Yeah. And the story is I started out running the SE team. We were $1 million in revenue, like just barely getting started as a company. But I really believed in the vision, and like I still do. It's a very compelling vision, sort of like a little early, and then all of a sudden at the right place at the right time. Yeah. Throughout my career at People.ai, as there's been changes throughout the organization, I've also had the opportunity to take over customer success, customer support, customer training, a lot of other functions. So I found myself running a lot of different parts of the company. And I think it's because I proved myself as an SE leader, gained the trust of the leadership team, and was able to expand my scope. And sort of when those opportunities come, you have you have the choice. I could take this risk, or I could like stay with what I'm comfortable with. And I almost saw myself as a risk taker, but my career didn't show that. So I wanted to prove to myself that I could like jump into other areas and run it, which I think I've done it well, I would say. I hope you would feel that way.
Yeah, I love that. And we've talked about risk a lot throughout these conversations, but I really appreciate that you've just said that because you have been part of like my research and my research study on this aligned function because you were one of the first people that I've talked to that took over that type of role. And learning why you took it over and what impact it made on the business was always super intriguing to me. And I have a lot of people who've reached out to me because I actually did a presentation earlier this year and I quoted you in it and quoted some of the function. And people are like, let me get an introduction to Jesse. I'm like, I can't give any more introductions to him, but I'm going to record an episode and talk about this. So I want to dig into this. So, I appreciate that you are a risk taker and you said your resume didn't show that. But what did you do within People.ai where they were like, you know what, Jesse's been in solutions but he can oversee these other functions.
Yeah, I'll tell you what it was. I think there's one key thing to this. Well, I'm going to do two things. No, as soon as I say that. Okay. I think one key thing is I really understood our customers.
Sure.
And when there was something that had to be done with our customers, so like we need Jesse and the SE team in our customer base.
Yeah.
So I did not focus purely on pre-sales.
Love that.
I understood that, and this was contrary to some of the models I'd seen deployed, but at a startup, and I think in general there's a shift. We'll talk about some of the shifts that are happening. I think there's a shift towards teaming on accounts across functionally.
Yes.
And the SE's job is not done when you, or some organizations, and People.ai included, your job is not done when you close the deal.
Yeah.
You don't just throw it out to a partner and
Yeah.
walk away. It's like you need to stay with that customer to some extent. There's some load balancing that happens in there.
Right.
So my team and myself, we were coming in and helping our customers. If an account started to turn red, we'd be there to like help make them turn them back to green. So I started to really understand the customers. I think that was one thing that earned the trust of my leadership team to give me more responsibility. I think the other big thing is I hired good people.
Yeah.
And I hired people that were, when I expanded the scope of my role, I could look at my team and be like, I have an heir apparent. Everybody knows it. I have a team that can run self-sufficiently without me being there, which takes strength of will to do this. I think people, it's an obvious thing to say, but when you're hiring, there is that part of the back of your mind where it's like, hey, I'm going to hire somebody more junior to this role. I'm going to coach them, build them up. But if you just do that, you also need to balance that with people that could take your job.
Yeah.
If people that are probably better at your role than you are. And I always said, like, and I told my team, like, I don't want to be the best SE at People.ai. Like, I really don't want to be. I need other people to do that but that allows me to expand the scope of my role.
Absolutely. I love that you said that, and I absolutely agree with you, right? Because I went through a little bit at Showpad where I was one of the first SEs, or first SE in the business, and grew through that business, and everyone relied on me to do demos or tell stories, right? And it was really hard to scale the team. And so the fact that you're thinking about that type of mindset is really, really important to scale. And I love that you've talked about you being able to oversee other functions because you have those heir apparents and good talent in your business.
Yeah.
One of the things that is really top of mind for solutions leaders that are going to oversee this function is, how do I manage a customer success team? How do I manage a support team, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that we've talked about is just value and value orientation. So how do you, in your own personal philosophy, think about value? And how have you been able to scale that methodology to the other functions that you oversee that have been thinking about value differently?
And this was one of the key advantages I had sort of moving into this role. So there is organizations that have kind of a wall between sales and post-sales. And it's like there tends to be some disagreement and conflict in there.
Yes.
And one of the first things I think, in order to be successful in this capacity, you need to really focus on customer outcomes and the account team.
Yep.
So just in general, when I look at like my organization and structure, I partner with sales like very deeply to the extent that like I model my organization off of the sales organization.
I love
like
that.
I know where the bread is buttered, so to speak. And like it's so much easier to model off of that than to like create different systems and things that are not congruent with the go-to-market team.
Yeah.
And then it's about the account team. So like when we do a deal review or a forecast call, you pull everybody in. It's really about like bringing the account team together. The AE, the CSM, the SE, executive sponsor, the other folks. And it's so important now as we like, and the reason why you hear a lot more people talking about customer success is it's much easier to grow your existing customer base than it is to find new customers.
It is.
Sometimes to the detriment of new customers. And there's some load balancing that comes into that. Back to the value conversation. One of the things that I have observed in a lot of companies is the sales team has like an ROI calculator. Like, hey, we just need ROI. So it's like, come in, like jot down, fill out the spreadsheet, we'll spit out ROI. And that's kind of preserved in amber in the pre-sales process somewhere.
Yeah.
And then the consulting team takes it. And like what happens is you hand it off to your consultants. They're implementing, right? The implementation team. They go down to your admin level people, your operators, and they implement the solution. And nobody's talking to the executives anymore. So you miss a value checkpoint.
Yes.
And then the consultants implement it. The implementation team deploys your software. and you hand it off to customer success. And that relic of like ROI is still like over here, and nobody's talked about it for 6 months now. And if you were to dust it off, it would like lose relevancy. So here's what we did, which I think has worked really well. We basically went back to the customer journey, and I created a customer journey, working with my team. We collaborated on a customer journey. So we have activation, launch, adoption, value realization, and renewal. So those are the 5 steps.
Love that.
And I want to go back to, so activation is the actual implementation of our solution, right? Launch was a new step that we added in, and that's the value step. So as you come in with activation, you're kind of wiring things together, standing up your solution. That's a really important part. We added in the launch step because it's like, hey, we need to get back with our executives, back to the value proposition.
Yes.
And like realign with business objectives, and also celebrate what's happened during the value checkpoints you've already hit.
Yeah.
So we went through and mapped out the entire customer journey and put a value checkpoint in each step of the customer journey. So in our document, down at the bottom in green, is value checkpoint. And then there's like documentation behind like, what are we doing there?
Love that.
This is really about threading through pre-sales to post-sales in a material way. And I'm glad, like I had the advantage of this because I could get my fingerprints on everything and like orchestrate it all together. It's a real challenge for go-to-market teams to align across. But the people that can figure that out, they'll be really successful.
Yeah. I love that you've done that. I want to dig in a couple things there. Tell me a little bit more about what that launch phase means with like getting back to executives. And the reason I ask this question, I 100% would agree with you, the ROI in Amber, and then, you know, teams are working with admins on admin perspective and not going back to the executives and keeping them up to date and letting them know what's going on. So what does that launch process look like at People.ai?
Yeah, so it's like we call it, like the term we have internal is a launch party, but it's actually where we schedule some time with the economic buyer, the person that signed up for this, because I've worked with vendors. I'm not going to name them on this call, but like I've purchased software where like the customer journey feels like this. It feels like activation, renewal. And that's your customer journey.
100%. It's
like,
awful.
They call me 2 months, like I activate it, I don't hear anything. They call me 2 months from the deployment of the software, from the renewal coming up. They're like, hey, how's it going? It's like, well, I haven't really gotten value. I feel like, I hate to say it, but there's a little bit of like ego in here because like I signed up for this. I put my name on this, and like you disappearing, it doesn't feel good to me as a purchaser of your solution.
Right.
So I don't want to create that sensation for our customers.
100%.
And that's why it's so important. Like we actually have, we use People.ai to track this. We actually track touch points with our economic buyer. And they have to be done on the regular in a material way.
Yeah.
And I want to just draw a distinction because like you hear the term QBR thrown around in post sales a lot. Like QBRs are kind of dead. Like what you need to do is you need to deliver like a value. If you just schedule 4 meetings in the year, you show up with the same content, it doesn't matter.
No.
Like this is a touch point on like realigning with business initiatives and then talking about the value that your solution is delivering.
Yeah.
Back to the launch step. This is where we re-engage the sales team. The AE gets back involved. The SE gets back involved. We review the deployment, make sure the deployment was set up correctly. And then we're moving into the next phase, which is actually enabling the teams and realigning with the economic buyer on like, is this the initiative that we should be solving for?
I love this. I absolutely love this because you said so many things that have been my hot button generally, right? And the thing that resonated with me the most right now is, like you said, sales teams build all this trust in a sales process. The AE, the SC, and a deal signs, and they say, see you later.
Yeah, and there's sausage making.
It's just ridiculous. And I think it's, I'm no stranger to say it's kind of like a clown move that like the AEs pop up at the final hour and they're like, hey, how's everything going? Are you ready to renew? And it's like, where have you been? Right? And I think this is why at TestBox we're running full cycle account executives, solutions architects, and programmatically bringing more people in to deliver value. But if we build all this trust with you in the sales process, we should stick around and stay with you to make sure that you find value, because I think the common misconception is that the deal is done when the signature happens, right? It's just the start of a process, right? And that's where more and more companies need to focus on value. And a term that you use that I want to dig into is value realization. So what we've actually done at test box is we don't have a dedicated customer success team anymore because we have full cycle teams.
Yeah.
Customer success is a company-wide initiative, right? We're early, small companies, so we can make these changes. We have a value realization team, right? And that is programmatic approach to making sure that you're finding value against the let me put a meeting on your calendar to check in with you type deal. So what does value realization mean at People.ai?
Yeah, so at People.ai, first of all, and I like this, you're like the Frank Slootman, customer success.
Yeah,
Totally
there.
Controversial take, but I like this, because, and I'll tell you why. Even as somebody that's run a customer success team before, I like that approach. Maybe not taking away the customer success team, but I like the mentality that the customer success is everybody's responsibility.
Everybody's job.
So if you give it to one person in the company, and SEs we as a profession, we tend to do this. We look at the customer success team, be like, why didn't you figure this out? It's like, well, we probably didn't have a proper handoff. The business justification got lost along the way. And I have the unique experience of being on both sides of the fence. So I can see this happening in my organization and all around. So what I've come to realize, and I think I alluded to this, is that ROI that you created, the $1.2 million ROI or whatever it was, it's really important. You should review that. The business initiatives are changing so quickly that you constantly have to stay on top of what are the business initiatives that we're tied to at the executive level, at the board level.
Yeah.
And that's really where you could re-articulate your value as you go. Because the reason why that person bought 3 years ago and you got that old ROI, that person left 2 years ago. There's been 3 leadership turnovers.
Yes.
So you kind of have to stay on top of the value conversation constantly, which is why you need all those value checkpoints. Yes. And if you're not realigning to it, then you're in trouble. The other thing I'll say is value has to be driven top down. But by that, I mean, you can go to and I've seen this, and I think every software solution person sees this. I can go to you and say, you have 70% MAU. And I go to the operators and the admins, and they're like, awesome, 70% MAU, solutions being adopted, everything's great. What does the CFO say about that?
Yeah, totally.
The CFO is like, I don't care about usage of the solution. I want to know numbers that is actually driving.
Yes.
And the way that you get to real numbers is you don't operate at that. Drive adoption. Yes. You have 2 plays. You have your adoption play, your bottoms up, drive adoption with your end users, but also have a value play top down. And if you don't line up both of those things, you just have one component, you're going to be in trouble. You need your operators, admins, practitioners to love your solution. But here's what really matters. When the CFO walks into your economic buyer's office and they say, do you want this? How is it going with this solution? That person needs to say, I cannot live without it.
I love it.
And if they don't say that, then you're in trouble. And you're at risk as a vendor.
Okay, Jesse, light bulb moment, right? Because I love that you said that, because the reality of software right now is, even if you're not competing in a certain category, you are competing for budget. And at the end of the day, whether it's the concept of above the line, below the line, or stack ranking tools and products, unlimited resources to buy as many products that you can utilize in your go-to-market team doesn't exist anymore, right? And so how are you making sure that you're delivering more value or as much value as other adjacent technologies in the stack? And I think you nailed it by saying, it's People.ai, Testbox, happy solutions that, teams cannot live without. And that is really important to the future. And I think that just core concept is why I think a lot of software companies are not necessarily set up for success over the next couple of years, because they haven't had that mentality, right?
Yeah, you can't rest on your laurels right now.
You cannot.
The beat counters are out.
Yeah. And you brought up earlier, selling in the install base, because I've done some research and seen some VC studies where companies, VC portfolios for the first time in a long time are seeing more revenue coming from current customers than net new logos.
Yeah.
Right. And you can't go and sell to your install base if you disappeared at the handoff and you've struggled to deliver value in the implementation. So that's something that we see already in our business. I assume that you're seeing the same.
Yeah, I mean, and the good news is People.ai has phenomenal NRR. So
it's amazing.
We're hitting the numbers from that perspective. And it's because of the value checkpoints that we have with our customers, and we're seeing a lot of growth in our customer base. But it's interesting, you want to balance that. And I think this goes back to the pre-sales conversation a little bit, because one of the things that I look at with my pre-sales team is, where are they spending their time?
Yes.
And like, this is back to the kind of the CFO question as well, and the AEs. So I have customers that come to us and they use People.ai for this analysis. So one of the things that we help our customers with is, like, let's call it hunting versus farming, right?
Yeah.
Like, where's the organization spending their time? Like, these are like big levers that you can pull, big dumb levers, but like, it matters. So I'll have companies come to us and be like, hey, People.ai, like, we're not, our pipeline is dried out. We're only expanding our customer base. What's going on? It's like, well, I can tell you that your team is spending 80% of their time with their customer base on recurring calls, on these value checkpoints. This is good stuff to do, but at the expense of new business.
Yes.
So you have to be very careful as far as like balancing that, because new customers grow those numbers. Like, you can't just milk your existing customer base.
Yeah, that's a good call out. And I think you brought up the concept of load balancing a couple times, and I think that's really important to org structures and, reorging, and then think about where your team spends their time and energy. And that's the way that we think about at TestBox, because I mentioned the work full life cycle. So like, I know that if I simplify this in the most basic term of high, medium, low, that when my solutions architects are in sales process, it's typically, or pre-signature process, medium level of effort. When we're actually implementing, it's a high level of effort. Yeah. And once we've deployed and we're co-live and we're in value realization, it's typically a low level of effort, unless it's an expansion motion where it goes back to medium. And we've been trying to figure that out from a load balancing perspective, because we want to focus on building and maintaining that relationship. But like, what is the capacity of any certain person on the team?
And you need, in order to really have these conversations, you need to have data. Yeah. I think it's jarring for most companies when they like lift up that rock. They're like, oh, well, no wonder our pipeline dried out. We're actually not working our pipeline.
Right.
We're not working our prospect base right
Absolutely.
Now, to the extent that we could be.
Yeah. And one thing I want to go back to that resonate with me is this concept of just like team selling and like the pod structure essentially is what you have is. So I kind of want to take a flip side approach. Is you took over these other functions of customer success, support, customer training. How did the teams respond for you coming over to own that function and be like, hey, we're going to think about things a little bit different?
It was different. I didn't have a customer success background, and I admitted that coming into it. I'm like, hey, I know our customers really well. Like, that is the advantage that I have. I need, and this is the exact play. I need to find good people in the organization that could do a better job at it than I could.
Yeah.
Right? Same policy applies to expanding my scope of responsibility. I hire people and I find people in the organization that I trust.
Yep.
They give you really good advice on how to run the team, and you learn from them. Yeah. So I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on, well, now I will pretend to be an expert on this stuff because I've done it long enough where it's like ingrained in me. But to start, it's like, you just have to go out there, you have to learn, you have to listen, you have to get good advice from people that are better at it than you are. So I think that's probably part of the question you were asking.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because I think that a lot of leaders aren't willing to admit that they don't know something about a function, especially when they take over something that new. You want to come in and be like, hey, I'm the expert. I know what I'm doing. We're going to make these changes. So I like that you've leaned into things that way.
Yeah, and like humility, I just want to say like when you're moving into a new role, like it really takes humility.
I agree with that. How have you used humility in this whole process?
Like I said, like I went to the team, I'm like, I need your help. Like, I need your help to make this work.
Yeah.
And, this jars my memory about the rest of the question. I will say it was a different way of looking at things. Like, they're just like SEs that are out there as a support function for sales.
Yeah.
There's customer success, which is out there as a support function for customers.
Sure.
And that's not what I think customer success is. So I will say that.
I can agree.
And I went to the team and I was like, hey, we're now all in a sales role. Yeah. And what I mean by sales is like, we're not like on a quota. It's not like we're like selling used cars over here, but maybe it's talking about value in a different way.
Sure.
But if you're not aligning to like the outcomes the customers try to drive in their business initiatives and having value conversations, this is not the right role for you, because we're not spending our time on ticky-tacky admin things all the time.
Yeah.
You need to address those things, and that's a big part of the role. But if you're not elevating the conversation, it's not a good fit for you. I think that was jarring for people to have that conversation.
I believe that, because even in my own experience, I think sometimes I've seen customer success managers doing work that doesn't really seem necessary because they've been told that they need to do these types of reports or they need to do these types of check-ins, and it's just like the day-to-day of the job versus reorienting around value for the customer.
It's so much more fun to have that type of conversation.
Yeah.
It raises the morale of the team, that everybody's respected more, your customers get much
100%.
more engaged. And then you like have these moments of like the dopamine rush of like a great customer interaction.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I'm just lighting somebody up right now. I'm showing this something that's like, they're like, wow, this is exactly what I need right now. And like, in order to get to that, you have to understand what's aligned with the business initiatives that they have.
Yeah, love that. Let's talk a little bit about the challenges, right? Like, what kind of challenges have you personally experienced and the team experienced in this new organization function that you've already talked about? Like, you had to make a shift, you're treating customers different, you're thinking about value realization different, but like, where were the challenges and how did you navigate through those?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just like, for me personally, it was just learning the ropes and how the organization worked, and then sort of like realigning everything to have it be more customer oriented. And that's like, I was just really focused on customer outcomes.
Yeah.
So it is getting ahead of everything. Yeah. Like you have to review and like understand your customers very deeply. Yeah. And this is where I'm thankful that I work at People.ai, because I was able to use our data set to get ahead of this stuff. So when we look at a customer that's coming up for renewal, we have our key KPIs. I know, has my team engaged the executives? Has my internal executive stakeholder been involved? Have we had in-person meetings? And in this world, and we're going to get to the AI stuff, I think, at some point, but like what's happening is like we've got a crashing wave of email cadences, avatars, all kinds of AI BS, right? And the people that are going to be most successful outside of that crashing wave are the ones that maintain really strong relationships with their customer base.
Yeah.
And you do that by picking up the phone, scheduling meetings, interacting with them in ways that's more human, and understand the network of relationships at a company. This has been one of the things that we've really focused on, is like getting to know our customers, understand what they care about, and aligning specifically with like the business outcomes they're trying to drive.
Yeah. The human relationship in this era of noise is more important than ever. And one of the things that, like you just alluded to, that we've talked about is AI, right? So I'm curious, as a company who's building and focusing on AI, and as an executive who's trying to introduce AI into your own go-to-market motion, like what's top of mind for you?
Oh, there's a lot. So I think that the big shift right now is into agents. And I think that like the industry has basically come to grips with the idea that tasks will be automated. I know we've been talking about that with AI for a while, but like just coming out of like Dreamforce, seeing the announcements, all the big companies are basically talking about like, hey, we're automating tasks.
Yep.
And that impacts workforce, right? That impacts talent. It impacts how you manage teams. And that is coming, and everybody's sort of moving in that direction. Yes. I don't think it's apocalyptic though. Like there's that narrative out there.
There is.
I kind of mentioned the human interactions and like getting in the room. Like I genuinely believe in the and I mentioned this earlier, but if you're not in the room talking to executives, somebody else is. I promise you, it's not an AI avatar. It's a real human that's having those conversations. So I think that's where go-to-market will continue to thrive, back to having a really good understanding of the account team and how you're organized and like what are the swim lanes in your account. So there's a lot of interesting trends going on with AI. Back to the agent stuff.
Yeah.
I think what's happened here is the shine is off of the LLM chatbot wall of text. And you can kind of see this coming.
Yes, that's the call.
If I see one more demo of somebody creating a better email or like a blog post, like that's like the most rudimentary use case for AI. And what I'm seeing out there is customers are starving for like, give me a real AI use case. Somebody give me real AI in my go-to-market. Like, I don't know what is. And then we kind of like, we jumped out of the gate. Everybody's investing, thinking about AI, and we're still creating emails and blog posts with it and better written content. Because like LLMs are fantastic.
They are.
So here's what's happening next. And Andreessen Horowitz just had a really interesting article on this. Now, I'm not going to be the person that's like predicting death of CRM. I think that's like happened like every year continuously.
Yes, for a long time. Death the salesperson, death CRM.
There is like a tectonic shift that's happening here. So I'll give you one example. something that I think is really absurd. Sales reps updating sales stages. Like that is, it's over. It's a thing of the past. And I'll explain why. And we actually had people that customers came to us and like, hey, can you help us solve this problem? Wow. We've actually solved this for customers. So you have a sales stage, right? A sales process document. And every organization has this where it's like a laminated sheet. They give it to you. It's got like 700 data points on it, like exit entry criteria, all this stuff, right? It's like, okay, seller, go out and memorize this sheet and like tell me where this is. And the managers have their own process. Everybody's on their 5th job in 4 years. Like it's a whole mess. So AI can actually do a phenomenal job with this. So what we're doing is we're combining an AI assistant that actually looks at your methodology. So what are the stages that you have, exit entry criteria, what should you be doing in a deal? And then we combine that with the People.ai data set, which actually has like, who have you met with? What have you been talking about? Every single key moment in interaction that's happened. And we're predicting the sales stage across an entire forecast.
Wow.
So we're updating sales stages for our customers, and we're doing it more accurately than your sellers ever could.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. So like this is these problems that we've been suffering with CRM for the last 20 years. They're going away, and AI is going to pick up the ball.
And I think it's about time, right? Because if we even think about like the solutions consulting role, the AE role, there's so much admin work that's happening, and it's taking away from customer-facing activities.
I still talk to SE leaders that have people log activities.
Really?
I don't know who that is, but like I've heard it happen somewhere.
Yeah, it's like why does it matter? And I understand it, but like there's so many ways to automate this. There's so many ways to use technology. And I think from a solutions profession, just to go back to the solutions engineers, if I'm a SE leader, my ratios are not scaling like they once were. Right. Yeah. So I have to make sure that my team is doing as much as they can customer facing at all times. I cannot have them doing admin work. I can't have them doing demo maintenance or demo builds, right? I need them focused on customers to maximize that. And so then also if the account executives have less admin duties themselves, that means more customer facing time, and they're going to need more solutions help to do that. And so I think this is a necessary shift because we probably created this unnecessary evil on like CRM management of the past. And it's just become the standard, but it doesn't need to be the future.
I understand you need data to run an SE organization. Yeah. Like that is the bottom line. And you have two options. You can automate that data and fully automate it, or you could do manual logging. So in my experience, the reason why I'm at People.ai is probably because of my experience with this. When I was running SE teams, I would come in, I'd be like, hey, how's everybody tracking your time? Like what's everybody up to? Yeah. The basic question. And like, oh, we tag our name to an opportunity in Salesforce. And like, I'm like, okay, you work out 40 opportunities. Like, are you busy or are you not? Like, I see you're busy.
Yeah, totally.
But I can't take that data point to the CFO.
Right.
So like, I need you to log activity. So what would happen was my best SEs were the worst at giving me data. So everything was pear-shaped. And like, I'd take it a report, I'd be like, I don't know, my worst SEs have 40 hours. My best SEs have 3 hours. Like, I can't justify this and nothing ever makes sense. So the trick is you have to fully automate. You have to fully automate data. You have to attribute time to opportunities, and then you can get a sense for like where are SEs spending their time.
Yeah.
And without that, you can't run an SE organization in a clear way. So I think that's the first step to this whole problem. You can tell I'm animated about it.
I love it.
I've been down the bad path before.
Totally.
It's seen the light where it's like, okay, you don't have to log stuff.
Yeah.
It should be done automatically is very profound.
I agree. And so I'm curious, as we talk about AI and your go-to-market motion and automating some of these tasks for AEs and SCs, one of the things that I understand that you're doing at People.ai are like AI workshops. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about what those are and how they've impacted your sales motion?
Yeah, so this is our AI maturity workshop. And what we found is this is obvious to people, but it's good to have a framework for it. Because like all the high-tech companies, it's AI startups in San Francisco, they get the AI vision. Like they're already through the race on that. Like you're paying for GPT, you're like, oh, one strawberry, like running around with all this stuff, right? Most people are not having these types of conversations.
Sure.
They really aren't having it. They don't know the use cases for AI. They just don't know. And I think that's why it taps out of emails and blogs, right? Like we didn't innovate beyond that.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing with our customers is we're walking through the AI maturity model. And you can take any business process, take like account planning, right? Like a lot of companies have an account planning initiative. If you plan against your accountants, then you will grow the revenue in that account, in theory, in practice. But it sits in, like, the first level is it sits in a spreadsheet somewhere or a PowerPoint. Second level, it's a bunch of fields inside of Salesforce. But you can move through the levels of automation and actually move to true automation of an account plan.
Yeah.
So this is one of the solutions that People.ai has developed. We're kind of helping making quantum leaps for our customers, but it's like we can actually generate account plans based off of your first party data. So like the conversations you're having with a customer, combine that with their 10Ks, 10Qs, public information, generate account strategies.
Yeah.
I kind of joke about it, but like an account plan, if you've ever actually encountered an account plan, it's sort of like that high school essay where it's like you write your name and the date. And then it's like,
that's good.
And then you have like the
that's
prompt
good.
and you're like, all right, here we go. I'm going to start writing this. I'm going to write my thing, but nobody's there to like guide you along and provide best practices. What does good look like? What's working elsewhere? But AI can do that.
Yeah, it's incredible.
You need the data. You need the underlying data set to get there, and then you can actually coach your sellers and your SEs to have better strategy.
Yeah. How have your buyers resonated with this workshop?
They love it because people will like when we sort of plotted out every business process, and a lot of companies are looking at tool consolidation right now, and like what are the things that I actually need in my organization? Yeah. And it really helps with that because we over the last 20 years there's been proliferation of tools like interfaces that people log into to perform like different functions. So with AI, like the cruel reality is a lot of these things are becoming irrelevant and pretty fast. So it sort of helps you like inventory where everything is. Yeah. And then there's also like not the apocalyptic scenario, but there is your competitors are going to come. They're going to figure out AI before you do if you don't move. And one of the stories that we tell, like major telco company, we want to scale our agent workforce. And when our competitor's network goes down, we want to contact everybody. It's like, how many people do you want to contact? 50 million. We're contacting 50 million people today. It's a extinction level event. If you don't start scaling your AI capacity or be ready for that, they're going to come for you. Yeah. So like, it's also like you have to start future-proofing yourself today, like navigate your organization through that. Because there's AI councils, there's security concerns, there's all this other stuff comes with it. So if you're not deploying AI solutions, do you know who is? Your employees are running back home to ChatGPT, and they're putting stuff in there, and you've got shadow AI running in your company. Wow. If you haven't bought AI, then your employees are doing it. They just don't tell you about it.
And that's risky.
Yes.
That's absolutely risky. This has been a fascinating conversation. I feel like we could continue to go on. I did want to ask a biased question because as we know about AI and tools and making more your solutions team and your account executive team less administrative. Yep. People.ai is a test box customer, right? And so I'm curious from your perspective, like what role did purchasing test box play in this? Well, one, org consolidation, but two, the AI aspect of your business.
Okay, I love this. I love this topic. I was so excited to be a test box customer because it solved for like a big challenge that we were having. Yeah. So as an AI company, you kind of need to encounter a new question, which is like, how do I demo AI? How do I bring it to market? It's non-deterministic. I need big data sets fuel it. I still want to tell like narrative stories that make sense for like different verticals across my customer base. These are like big challenges and big data challenges. And this is where it clicked for me, where you're like, oh, just send them a test box. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, oh, just send them a People.ai environment to a customer. And that's where I was like, oh, that's it. Because people still want to get hands-on.
They do.
They don't want to like sit over Zooms and ask questions. They want to touch it and feel it. And I think this is what's so profound about being a test box customer, because we could send it to a customer and basically simulate their environment and do it at scale across our customer base. Yes. So it helps with the very dangerous thing, which is a free POC. Everybody loves a good free POC. I know we all want them. Like there's a lot of commitment on both ends.
There is. Yeah.
And like it's costly for us, it's costly for you. Are we here? Are we committed? Can I get you closer to that commitment stage before we jump into the POC? Agreed. That helps tremendously.
Yeah. I love that. And like the time, right? Like time kills all deals, and like to get buy-in on both sides and go through security and compliance. Yeah. It could be a lot.
Yeah. And now you're like 3 months away from a signed order. You could be 6 weeks. Who knows?
Right. Even faster.
Changing that outcome with test box has been it's been amazing for us. So it solved for two problems. Just how do I demo AI at scale?
Yes.
Which is like tricky because I can't just HTML fake stuff. You know, it's like you gotta like,
No.
you need data to do that. And then be able to give my customers hands-on experience with People.ai. Those have been profound for us.
I appreciate that. I love hearing that. One comment I'll make is that I feel like sales motions will change with AI, right? Because I've talked to so many customers and even worked at companies that like hard code the AI, right? The AI is, like you said, HTML coded to ask it one of three questions and it's going to give you a response. And I think more savvy buyers will say, let me ask an AI question, right? And so if People.ai is using an environment that's simulating a best-in-class customer, you know, I think it's a great way to build trust to tell the buyer, ask it a question.
Oh yeah, and we do this, and we'll let our customers go crazy on it because like that's where the static fills the room. That like real energy where it's like, wow, I can't believe it's doing this. I've never seen this happen before.
Yeah.
And you need to get off the rails a little bit to do that. And like you can tell these static demos, they're not compelling. Our customers are demanding more.
Yeah, they're definitely demanding more, and I think it goes back to all the overselling and like the sales team and solutions team leaving the relationship after the contract signature and technology not delivering value. So I think we're going through this new wave, right? And that's why I think like the product tours of demo automation on our website are great, but nothing replicates live demos and nothing replicates real POCs like the actual product, right? You got to be able to do it, and you got to let buyers get hands-on for them to, you know, trust your solution will do what you say it does.
Yes, exactly.
So, Jesse, it's been awesome having you. I really love the conversation. Fun. Always great talking to you throughout the years. I appreciate all your guidance and love what you're doing at People.ai.
Great. Thanks.
Appreciate it.